welcome in. I think this is your first time in here. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. This is super cool though. You guys have a lot of people in here. This is awesome.
Do you want to just give us kind of your elevator pitch from the beginning?
Yeah, it's just about Paradiddle or like my background too.
Maybe start with your background and then what you're working on.
Cool. Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Emre. I've been in VR since I'd say around like 2013. I initially got into VR when I was working at Disney Imagineering, which, like, if you don't know, they build a lot of Disney theme parks and attractions around the world. So that was kind of my first experience with VR, where I saw how they were using that to actually pre-visualize rides before they were built and like to make changes. And that kind of blew my mind. So afterwards, I decided to stay in VR and emerging tech specifically. I worked with them for about a year. And then afterwards, I'm international, so I was trying to figure out my visa situation. I had to leave Disney, and I ended up joining Magic Leap about in 2016 as a prototype developer in the hand tracking team. So it was a lot of just like experimenting with different inputs. Like our tech was obviously just being built, and like we were still iterating on it. So I would provide a lot of feedback to the team so we could keep improving our hand tracking models. I did that for about 2 years in that team, and then I worked on some of our other applications for a couple more years. And yeah, my background is kind of in like computer graphics, programming, a little bit of game dev, and like tiny bit of like fine arts background. And so for about the past 4 years, at the same time while I was working at Magic Leap, I was actually working on Paradiddle as a little side project. So I'm a drummer. I love playing the drums, but it's always been super inconvenient for me as a hobby to practice because, like having lived in big cities for most of my life, it's you don't usually have room for a whole kit, or you don't want to make noise and disrupt the neighbors, or like electronic kits can be super expensive. So I figured this could be a cool way to test out whether VR could actually work well for this use case. So I built this like very janky little prototype for myself, and I actually tried playing a song that I knew how to play in real life in VR. So this was about like 4 years ago. And that was kind of my initial test to see whether this had potential. And once I realized like I could actually play a full song in here, and I shared that around, I realized that like other people might actually be interested in trying this out. So since then, I've been kind of building on top of that, slow and steady. And as I said, like up until last year, I was not doing this full time, but I finally got my green card last year and ended up leaving Magic Leap, and started working on Paradiddle full time. So it's been on Steam early access for a while, and I also put it on SideQuest, near the end of last year. And yeah, it's been pretty fun. I mean, there's like so much potential, I think, in VR, and especially not specifically gaming, but like non-gaming use cases too. So this has been like a really fun way for me to kind of combine my interests and also provide something useful to the VR community.
That's awesome. That's a great story, and I'm sure we'd all love to hear more juicy details about your time at Magic Leap that you're legally permitted to disclose, if any. So maybe 2 months ago, we had a guest in here. His name's you may know him, Tom Impagliano. He runs Tribe XR. And so, I learned a couple things from him, and I'm going to use what I learned there as a lens for asking you a couple questions. So one of the things he mentioned is, and for anyone who doesn't know, they build DJ software, and they've partnered with some of the turntable manufacturers, right? And what he explained to me is kind of the spectrum where you have apps that, on one hand, it may be for practicing. That same app also may be for performing. And also like learning how to use a piece of equipment, and all these things kind of have a lot of overlap in functionality. And I'm curious where you see yourself on that spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I actually talk to the Tribe guys a lot. Like I'm talking to them tomorrow actually. But yeah, I totally agree. Like I think there's a lot of overlap, especially with VR and for Paradiddle too. Like because like we're not only like building the instrument, the virtual instrument itself, but because everything is virtual, like the app can actually help you learn because we just know more about like how you're playing or like what drums you're hitting, for instance. Like one thing I'm working on right now is kind of this like rhythm game mode, similar to like Guitar Hero or Rock Band, where you'll actually be like loading a song and then seeing the notes come in, and like that'll kind of teach you like when you should be hitting all the notes and everything. So I think I see it like in the intersection of all three. Like we have a lot of tools built in. If you want to make actual music, like you can actually hook up the app to your own audio software and like change the sounds, or like record MIDI output and then tweak that later on so you get like the exact sound you want. Or if you want to practice and want something as realistic as possible, like you can actually hook up electronic drum pedals or just cheap USB pedals and like start using your feet in the app. Um, and yeah, but like for learning too, right? Like one thing I noticed was that a lot of the people coming in, because it's so accessible and like convenient, and they don't have to deal with all these inconveniences of having a full drum kit. A lot of people end up being newcomers, so they don't really know how to play. So that's been kind of the one piece of feedback I've been getting consistently, where like people come in, the app doesn't teach them how to play, so they kind of they have to rely on their own self motivation to keep going. But I think because everything is virtual, like there's a lot of potential to help with that and make it more fun and like easier to get started and actually learn.
That's
So
great.
that's kind of where we're going now.
No, that makes perfect sense. And one thing, he shared with us kind of as a follow-up to that was that, he went out and made relationships with a lot of these turntable manufacturers. And what he found is that, even though their business is to sell these physical turntables, they're always eager to, have that product represented in a more accessible format, especially digital, so that people can come have their first interaction with it before they purchase one. Do you think there's similar opportunities for the makers of drum sets?
I think so. I mean, that's honestly something I should have been on like until now. I've been meaning to kind of reach out to some manufacturers to see what they think, but yeah, I mean, I've like heard from people who have started their experience in VR in Paradiddle and then ended up buying like an electronic drum kit or like upgraded to something more like advanced or like the actual physical version of it. So yeah, like there's definitely that like path when you get started with something accessible and then move your way up to the real thing.
I myself am a total Ableton junkie. When it
Nice.
comes to electronic music and that kind of stuff. And so I'm wondering if you have, a concept for how this can contribute to a creative workflow or a composition workflow.
Yeah, so like as I was saying, the app has MIDI input and output support, so you can connect it to other audio software like Ableton and use your own drum samples in there if you want. Like I like to record drum covers every once in a while to kind of showcase the app. So I've done workflows like that where I'll record my drum playing in MIDI, which if you don't know what MIDI is, it's basically kind of like an audio signal format that's like used widely, and you can essentially save all the drums you've hit and like how hard you hit them, like all these parameters about them. And once you save that information, you can go back and like tweak everything to get the exact sound you want. So I've like we already have a bunch of users who've told me they use that in their workflow to lay out like a rough beat for their song, and then they go back in and fix things. I think the real benefit is like because you're actually performing it, like it's gonna sound more real than if you were just programming some drums, right? So
Sure.
yeah.
Kind of have those like little organic flourishes that you only get when you record something. That's great. Okay, so I'll ask you 3 more questions and then we can break out because I'm sure everyone's got stuff to say. The first one is, what can you tell us about your business model?
Yeah, that's a good question. So far, it's just been, the app's just been on sale on Steam Early Access. So it's just like a flat $10 right now. I think moving forward, my plan is to, along with that, start kind of moving into more of like an in-app purchase model as well. And I think there are a lot of possibilities in here. Like it could either be, you could purchase new instrument packs maybe where like, as we keep adding more instruments, they're more like advanced or they sound more realistic. you might want to buy those and incorporate those in your workflow. Or it might kind of borrow from like the gaming world, where you might want to get like a new environment to play in that's kind of like audio reactive and super cool. Or like you might want to get instrument skins. And along with this rhythm game mode that I'm working on right now, I think that's one of the ideas I'm most excited about, where like if we could get start maybe selling some song packs or like artists kind of licensed music, and it came with like the instruments that belong to those artists, like something like that would be super cool, I think. So yeah, I think there are a lot of possibilities. That's kind of what I'm thinking about right now.
Have you considered some kind of celebrity creative sponsorship, like you get Travis Barker or Tom York to get in there and do some kind of unique line?
Yeah, I think once we get a little bigger, like I feel like I don't have the resources for that right now, but something like that would be ideal. Like I would love to get like Dave Grohl like playing like a Foo Fighter song or something, and just like going crazy in there with just like a huge drum set, and then make a video of that. I think that's really the dream.
That'd be awesome. Okay, two more quick ones. And the first one is, what has been, have you seen a community kind of develop around this product, and what's that experience been like?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a community slowly grow. Like we have a pretty active Discord. Currently I think we're nearing like 1,700 members maybe.
Awesome.
And like I've created it about like 3 years ago maybe, and like over time, as people started sharing stuff they were recording in there, like I think because it's a creation tool and like a creativity tool, it lends itself really well to community involvement. And actually, for the past 3 years, we've been organizing these drum cover contests where you can just send it, like record yourself playing a song in VR and then compete for prizes. Just today, actually, I finished sharing like the top 3 from last year's contest. That's on our Twitter if you want to check it out. But yeah, people have played some like super cool covers that like really push the app, to the limit. And it's so cool to see like this community form, like help each other out, help them figure out stuff. And I think with this, the rhythm game feature I'm working on, we're starting to see the same thing where you can now load custom songs. Like I built like a little song editor, so you can bring in original songs or like custom songs you might want to play. So I've already noticed people getting really excited about that, and I think that's going to encourage a lot of the community to be involved.
Yeah, I could totally see that being big. That's really cool. And the last question I'll ask you before we break up is just what can this community do to support you in your journey, and where can we keep up to date with what you're doing?
Yeah, So first thing you can do, if you want to check out the app, that'd be great. As I said, it's on Steam or also on SideQuest, and hoping to put it up on App Lab pretty soon as well. And then you can follow up with developments on our Discord or Twitter. As I said, the Discord's more active. Like I share a lot of kind of upcoming features and stuff in there. So that'd really be the best way.